Welcome back. So now let's combine what we did in the last video with setting up a retrofit object or a client that takes the base URL and adds whatever we prepare with this interface. So let's go ahead and create a new Kotlin file class object. And I'm going to name this retrofit client. Okay, we've done that before. Basically, we are now using the base URL, so private const val, which will be the base URL, which will be the URL from here. That's the base URL, including HTTPS, this entire thing. I put that in here. And then we have this create function, which takes no parameters, but returns a geocoding API service. So basically this thing that we just created. So here I want to have a retrofit object, which will be using retrofit dot builder. And now this builder, and let's import retrofit for this to work. Import class retrofit. So this builder now needs the base URL, which is going to be our base URL. It needs the converter factory. So we're going to add our JSON converter factory, which is what we added to our Gradle, if you recall. So it's here, the converter JSON. This allows us now to use the JSON converter factory. And let me put those into separate lines, which we now need to create. This JSON converter factory dot create. This create function returns a JSON converter factory, which is what this converter factory needs. Okay, it says give me non-null a converter factory, and we're passing one to it. And then we need to say build. Okay, so this will now prepare retrofit, and now we need to return retrofit.create, and here we need to pass our geocoding API service class as a class. So class.java. So it uses our service class to now create our retrofit client. And now finally, let's go ahead and combine or actually use this create function. And that would be inside of our view model. Okay, because our view model is basically taking care of getting the data and managing the data. So let's go ahead, and where is our view model? It's here, our location view model. So our location view model is not only going to take care of the location, but also of the address. So basically we need to do the same thing as we've done here with the mutable state of and so forth. So we are going to create an address, a private variable, and then it will also be of mutable state of. Now this time the content will be a list of, and here we need to define the type. Geocoding result, like so. This will be our address, and then in order to expose our address, we're going to create a state of or actually this will be a list of geocoding result, which will be our address. So this variable here. So basically, you see, this is a list of geocoding result, a mutable state of that list. And now we are passing the private variable into our public variable address. And we do the same thing as we did with the location. Now, how do we actually get the address now? So let's go ahead and create a function for that. And we're going to use here fetch address as the name. Now this fetch address function, what does it need? Well, it needs to use this retrofit client, but let me see. So here we need to pass the latitude, longitude, and key. Okay, so let's for now pass the latitude, longitude as string. And now you could pass the key in here as well, but you can also like hard code it directly inside of this function. So for now, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to hard code it in there. So I will use a try and catch because I want to use a coroutine here. So I want to call our suspend function. And if you want to call a suspend function, you need to do it inside of a coroutine. So that's why I'm doing this inside of this view model scope dot launch. Okay, so this will start a coroutine. Now what should happen with this catch? Well, we need to catch the exception. I'm just going to use a default exception, and I'm just going to say in here I want to log something to the console. I'm just going to say res1, and the message should be $e.cause and the message e.message. Okay, so what is this? Well, the thing is, what we're doing here is we're using the logcat. So in the logcat, which is this little cat here, there you can find entries of what's going on inside of your application, which resources were loaded, which code was executed, and so forth. The logcat gives you a lot of details, and you can write to that logcat yourself. And in this case, we're going to write to the logcat using whatever the exception gives as a cause of the error and the message of the error. So that's what this e-cause and e-message is. And we're going to find it under the tag res1. So here there are these tags. So OpenGL, renderer, and so forth. These are the tags, and we can use our own tags so that we can find whatever error we have come across. So what should launch inside of this fetch addresses view model scope? Well, actually, we want to get the result of our retrofit client. So we're going to create get address from coordinates. We're going to pass in the latitude and longitude and our key. So I stored my key inside of my Android manifest. So I'm going to copy this from here. Now there are other ways, but I'm just going to keep it simple for now, where I'm passing the key here, the latitude, longitude here. So that's what our get address from coordinates suspend function needs. So it needs the latitude and the key. And I'm giving it the latitude, longitude, and the key. So now this thing will now be our result. But this result is not what we are interested in. What we are interested in is the value, and we want to store that inside of address. So I'm going to, well, actually inside of this address here. So I'm going to say underscore address dot value should be result dot results. Because result, if you recall of what type it is, so it's of type geocoding response, and it contains a list of geocoding results, and that's what I'm interested in, which will give me the address, so to speak. And I can then take the first entry of that and display it on the screen of the user. So that's what this line will do for us. Okay, and that is pretty much everything regarding getting the data, loading the data, converting the data, and now we need to use this function to actually display the data, and we're going to display it inside of a dialog that will then display our location selection screen composable. So this one here is not going to be like an entire screen taking the entire width of the screen. It's just going to be like a pop-up that we want to display where the Google Maps will be displayed and the button underneath. So that's what we're going to set up in the next video and then finalize our app.